Hello. Today we are going to go over the Kismet sequence that handles the cinematics, the camera going into cinematic and out of cinematic, and that's this bit here, so we can have our dialogue with our NPC, and that's all that stuff down here. So let's take a quick look at, let's take a quick look at what it looks like and what we're going to cover. And here it is. So we're not going to cover, well, let me just walk. So here's my NPC character, and I want to have a conversation with him. So when I walk up, you can see the camera zooms in, and then we can have our conversation, and then when it's ready to leave. And right now, notice I'm in I don't have player control. I can only, character control, I should say. I can only have the conversation, and then when I leave, the camera's going to zoom back out, and I'll go back into player mode. Sorry, there's a bit of lag there. Okay, so that's what we're going to cover. All right, covering the camera again, playing the music. Well, actually, we're not going to cover that today. And when we finish with our conversation. So forget about the HUD, we'll take care of that later. So let's take a look at Kismet. So like I said, we're just going to cover this top section here. This bottom section is covered in another video, but we didn't need to talk about how this is being triggered. We just have a trigger here, right? And you can see that in the scene. That's this trigger right here. When you walk up to it, it initiates the conversation. Now, the reason we need this is because if we didn't have this trigger, if we didn't have this cinematic mode in this camera that we go into, when we walk up to the character, if we were to walk up, if we were actually to walk up to him at the side, the conversation would take place with the character facing in the wrong direction, and I could, rig up a Kismet sequence to make him turn, or do some stuff in code to make him turn. But it's much easier just to go into cinematic mode, have a camera. Okay, it's a little bit weird, but okay, that's how we're going to handle it. So, what happens is, we the trigger is touched. Okay, once again, we're going to ignore all this stuff down here. Trigger's touch, and we go right up here to the first thing we do is we toggle cinematic mode. And that's going to take, if I click this, okay, that's going to disable character movement, disable character moving, hide the player, which is very helpful. Disable input, I guess I just kept all these checked, and and if we have any dead bodies or whatever. I did also have the hide HUD clicked just in case. I do have here where it toggles the HUD on and off, but I went ahead and kept it disabled here too. So now we need to know who the player is, so we have the player variable. You guys know how to set that up. If you at any time forget how to, or don't know where one of these modules or node nodules or whatever you want to call them is, you can always just hit this, search for it, and you can find it in the list here. Like if you know you want to do a toggle cinematic mode, but you don't know where it's at with the right click menu, just click this little light bulb, and you can say toggle. Toggle. Actually, it worked even with capitals. So, toggle. And you can see here are all the possible cinematic, toggle. And you can see here I double clicked on it, and here it is in my scene. So those are the possible toggle events. So, yeah, this is pretty easy. It has the player. It's enabled, so that basically takes care of that. And then after that, we go into a matinee. Now, I wanted my camera to animate in nicely, so I just set up my camera separately in in matinee. And we can take a look at this. You know, you make a director group so you can look through the camera, and you right-click in it, right-click here, or yeah, you right-click here and make a new camera group, and you're going to be putting the animation here on the movement track. Here it is, yeah, with the middle mouse. And you can see I have two keys here, and we can take a look at what that looks like just by, if we have a director group, just select it, hit play, and, well, you'll see it better if I do it over here. Let me rewind it. So that's our camera that's coming in. I'm telling it to basically go to that camera, and there'll be another video, and there is existing videos on this, so I won't cover how to set up a matinee in this one. So basically, it goes into the matinee after we toggle cinematic mode. We don't have to worry about the player being in the way because he's basically hidden for now. So we go into cinematic mode, and it needs to know, this is just data that it needs that data. It even will make it if it's not there, I believe. And you can, so that's just leave that alone. And it needs to know what camera, and of course, I'm going to use the camera, this camera here, right? So I make a variable out of that camera, you know, select that camera, right click, say make new variable from object to camera, da da da, and then I can have that, and then that's the camera that's going to use, okay? And then after it completes, it sets the current camera to this camera as well. Okay, I needed this because I needed to be able to leave that camera later on. If I didn't do this, when I went back to my other, when I left cinematic mode, it seemed like it would kick me back into first person mode. I do handle that over here with this console command, but yeah, it needed that to use this variable. I tried it without this set camera target, and it just wasn't working. So here's the player. So then we have our matinee, and we have our cinematic, right? So basically, we just go into matinee, we play that, and then it's just waiting until it gets a call to reverse, right? So then that happens after all the dialogue is finished down here. I don't think there's any other settings. I don't need to play with any settings here. Yeah, I kept the rate the same for the camera. I didn't do anything else really. Intro cinematic, you know, you can put a comment on the top if you want, so you remember what it is. So what happens? It's going to wait to be a reverse call to come in, and that's going to happen after we have our dialogue. Once again, all this here is a dialogue, right? So after all this happens, we're going to go into another toggle HUD. Remember, this was the toggle HUD at the beginning. Well, this is the toggle HUD at the beginning of the dialogue that's taking place. This is the toggle HUD at the end of the dialogue that's taking place. So once it comes out here, it's going to actually reverse that animation. So play that camera going back, right? And then after it's reversed, it's going to go here. So what is it doing? Well, we're kicking ourselves out. This is disabling cinematic mode. At the same time, I'm giving a console command, and you can even see here the command is just behind view, and actually when I put that in, yeah, and it will let you'll know if it's going to work or if it should work, because as soon as you put a command here, it's going to try to find the script that belongs to that command, and this is just a standard script behind view. Okay, yeah. So once again, the cinematic mode needs to know it's the player who's going to be leaving cinematic mode. This actually, I think this set camera was the beginning. I think this was the set camera I needed to put. So this set camera tells it to use the player camera now, because remember, that camera actually doesn't exist until runtime. So now I can say use this camera from the player and set that camera to look through, and then take that camera, put it back into behind view, and then yeah, that's pretty much what happens when we reverse. And then that's it. And then we kick out and we play our sound and make a log, which isn't necessary, but and this puts the player, the NPC, back into his idle animation. So that's it. Once again, quite easy. After we toggle our event, and after the trigger is touched, we toggle the HUD. This was from the old. I mean, this toggle HUD came with the interaction system, so I just kept it. Makes sense to keep it. So we touch the trigger. We basically go to cinematic mode. And of course, the player is the target for that. We have matinee after the cinematic mode, which in the cinematic mode basically to disable the movements, disables turning, hides the player, and so forth. This is our new camera now, because we've set that camera to be here, right? This camera gets set here, and we basically animate that camera. And then after we are finished with our conversation, when we toggle the HUD back on, we go back here, we reverse that animation of the current camera. Once it's reversed, it comes out here, and it does these three events, toggles back on cinematic mode, turns back on player movement, turns back on the player, blah, blah, blah. Uses a console command to set that in behind view. Okay. Yeah, nothing else is. And sets that camera of the current player to use the camera that belongs to our player. That's what this does. Yeah, that's it.